Hey everyone, I'm Jackson. If you're familiar with my stuff, then welcome back. If not, then hello. I'm a 23-year-old financial coach who is on my own journey towards financial freedom and retiring early. And so I started this channel and my own education business, Money Mastermind, as a way to empower other young entrepreneurs who are trekking down the same path towards becoming financially free. So if that's your thing, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell. I post videos every week. My podcast, Young Bulls, where I talk with other young entrepreneurs about their experiences, sort of their mindset, comes out on Mondays. And then my regular videos like this come out every Wednesday. Also, please hit the like button. It helps more people see the video and ultimately lets me make better videos for you guys. So without further ado, let's jump into the video. You saw the title. Today we're talking about Dave Ramsey. So let's run that intro clip. Alright. So most of you are probably familiar with Dave Ramsey. That's probably why you clicked on the video, but if you're not, Dave Ramsey is a huge icon in the finance industry. He runs a talk radio show called The Dave Ramsey Show, which is top 5 in the US with about 13 million listeners per week, which is absolutely crazy. And this guy, to some degree, has been a big role model for me. I have a ton of respect for what he does, and a lot of his advice is spot on. And also you can tell that he comes from a place of really caring about what he does. I mean, if you check out his Instagram page, you'll see pictures of people who paid off ridiculous amounts of debt thanks to his help. And he's always posting like, congratulations. You can tell that he cares, which is really cool. But honestly, it's kind of hard for me to agree with all of his advice. I mean, the man's 59 years old. That's older than my parents. So it's sort of tough for people who maybe are in high school or in their early 20s like me to take all of his advice exactly the way he puts it, because there's a big disconnect there. When he was going through college, when he was figuring out his wealth, the economy was different and a lot has changed since then, and thus some of our strategies towards building wealth, I believe, need to change too. And so I've broken it down into 3 main areas that I think Dave gets wrong, or at least sort of the modern perspective of some of the advice that he's giving. So the first category is on debt. There's a couple different areas here where I disagree with Dave. So first of all, if you know Dave at all, he's adamant about hating debt, which is fair. I mean, part of his story, when he was 26, he amassed a huge portfolio of real estate, was making over $1 million a year. I think it was about $4 million. And then at the age of 28, lost everything. And so since then, he's been a firm believer that debt is the enemy towards building wealth, and so a lot of his advice is around sort of avoiding debt at all costs. But I think there are a couple exceptions to this. Like, for example, he put on his Instagram, I can't scroll through and show you right now because I'm using my phone to record, but I'll put it up on the screen. I saw he put up yesterday, it just says 3 words, don't borrow money. Which is fair, but aren't there some exceptions? I asked this on Instagram, and apparently I sort of poked the beehive by accident. Whoops. But really though, especially when it comes to rental properties and investing in real estate, I know that's how Dave lost his money, and so he's against that strategy, but it doesn't mean that there aren't ways to leverage money that you borrow, especially in the form of a mortgage, to make more money down the road. I mean, in the example of owning a property that you rent out, you can immediately start cash flowing that property as long as you have somebody living there. Sure, there's some risk involved, but you have to absorb a little bit of risk in order to get some reward, right? So ultimately, I just think that there are some ways and there are some exceptions when it comes to debt that can be overall beneficial for your position. So I agree in general that you should be avoiding debt, but I think it's important to know the difference between bad debt and good debt. Bad debt is anything that strictly is losing you money, right? Like if you take out a mortgage and just live in the place and you have payments for 30 years, computers and utilities, taxes, insurance, all that's a sunken cost, right? But if you're paying all of that and then on top of it renting that place out and maybe down the road refinancing or even selling, then you can come out ahead as long as you know what you're doing. Obviously, before you get into investing, you would want to make sure that you're secure financially, right? You have a good emergency fund, your habits are straight, you have decent savings. But once all of that is in order, who's to say that you can't borrow a little bit of money and leverage it intelligently in a place like real estate? Just my 2 cents. And then the other point on debt that Dave makes that I'm not a big fan of is his sort of like super aggressive strategy when it comes to debt. You know, like work 100 hours a week if you have to, he's said before. Make sure you just have $1,000 saved in case stuff hits the fan, and just go all in on your debt. And he also talks about, he says, living like nobody else, right? Live on beans and rice. And I think that when it comes to debt, the process of paying it off looks different for everybody, and it doesn't need to be this strict like military style method of paying off debt. I think that you can do it in a way that's comfortable. I think you can meet your needs and your wants and use whatever money is left over to start paying off your debt. And obviously you want to be paying yourself first when you get paid, right? Making debt payments and then paying your bills. But you don't have to live off beans and rice. And I know he's exaggerating to make his point, but I don't think that drastic lifestyle changes are always in order for everybody. In some cases they might be, but in a lot of cases I've seen you can pretty much continue on how you are. Just be adamant about paying off your debt and you'll find a comfortable way to do it at a time that's right for you. The second category is with credit cards. So Dave hates credit cards too, obviously. Little plastic rectangle that can get you into tons and tons of debt. And I agree. It seems like free money, but it's not, and it's a big trap, right? These companies wouldn't exist if people weren't paying ridiculous amounts in fees and interest payments, and how could they afford to give us all these cool bonuses, you know? So I get it, but his advice is to cut your credit cards up, avoid them entirely. And I think you're sort of shooting yourself in the foot by doing this, because nowadays, like, in order to qualify for a mortgage, to get a good interest rate, you need to have not only a credit score, but you want to have a good credit score. So I think that the root of the issue is a lack of responsibility. I think it's sort of like a user error when it comes to people using credit cards to get them into debt. It could be because of bad habits too. But at the end of the day, if you are able to be responsible about the way you use your credit card, it can be overall beneficial for your situation, because not only are you building up your credit, showing lenders that you're more trustworthy to give money to down the road and for a better price, but you can also get tons of rewards like cash back and stuff if you never rebalance or pay a cent in interest. And it's possible, you know, just set up your auto payments and make sure that everything's in order. But my point is, I think there's a healthy way to have credit cards, and I almost think that avoiding credit entirely is less advantageous than focusing on the responsibility piece and using credit in a way that helps your position instead of hurts it. And then the last category is his ideology behind working through college. So this is a really interesting one, because pretty much what Dave says is that it's possible, you know, if you take cheap classes, focus on getting out in 4 years, you can work your way through college very easily and graduate debt-free. And that's what he did, right? So he tells people you can do the same thing. But let's think about it. Dave was born in 1960, so he went to college in the early 80s. I'll put it up on the screen, but according to the Department of Education, over the past 3 decades, tuition at public 4-year colleges has more than doubled, even after adjusting for inflation. Which means since the 80s, since the 90s, college has more than doubled in price, but wages haven't really matched. So nowadays, if you do the math, it's not as feasible as he makes it seem. And the other thing too is, if you look at his story, he was a real estate agent through college, and that's how he was able to afford it. Not a lot of people are in a position to be making like $40,000, $50,000 commission checks, you know, at age 18, 19. Some people find themselves in real estate, but I don't think it's realistic to say that you could just work your way through college, managing a full course load load, working say 20, 25, 30 hours a week, and trying to have a life on top of all of that. I just don't think it's feasible to be able to graduate without some debt. And unfortunately, that's just kind of the reality of college. And it seems like people are almost getting into it knowing that nowadays, that there will be some debt involved. And I mean, hey, it for a lot of people, it's a great investment in their future. And for other people, you know, like myself included, it just isn't the right path. But I think it's sort of misleading to tell people, especially those who are still in high school, that, oh yeah, no, it's fine. You won't graduate with any debt as long as you just get a job while you go through school. Unfortunately, it's just not like that anymore. And I mean, I don't blame Dave for saying those things. Like, my parents make similar comments because they went through college around the same time. But the return on investment, the ROI of college, of what it used to be, just isn't the same. And on top of that, according to Harvard Business Review, graduates in the 21st century are making significantly less after graduation on average than they were in the 80s and the 90s. So college costs more, and the degree you get from it ends up paying you less. I think now in 2020, we just need to be a little bit more realistic about what college really is, be adamant about getting as many scholarships and financial aid as we possibly can, and just have a good plan for paying off some of the debt that you'll leave with. So overall, I disagree with Dave on the points of debt. I think that there are some forms of good debt. You just have to be smart about it and mitigate your risk. I don't really agree with him about credit cards. I think that you can responsibly use them to your benefit. You don't have to cut them up. And I think the notion that it's feasible to work your way through college and graduate with no debt is just not really the case anymore, and shouldn't be told to people getting ready to go down that path. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you so much for watching this video. Chris Pie 5 if you finished to the end. If you like this content, please leave a comment down below and let me know what you liked about it. Maybe leave a suggestion for an upcoming video. I'm totally open to anything. Subscribe, hit the bell so that you stay posted on my videos, and please like this video. It really helps the channel grow. I'd appreciate it. Till next time. Peace.